All right, welcome to IT Trendsetters. So we have some repeat guests here, and the person that kind of looks like Kirk is actually Kirk with a mustache. There you go. So Len, why don't you give a quick introduction, and then Kirk, or the guy that looks like Kirk. We think we know who you are, but let's get this party started.
All right.
Sure thing. My name is Len No. I am a technical evangelist, white hat, and a biohacker for CyberArk. I am an international cybersecurity speaker, presented in over 42 different countries and pretty much most major IT events globally. I came by my knowledge through practical application. I was actually on the other side of the table for most of my life and came into the security side about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I specialize in trying to show attacks from an attacker's methodology and to provide the attacker's mindset to things and actually show people the real kind of threats that are out there, especially with the ones that they don't even know exist yet.
Cool. And where are you located?
I live just outside of Austin, Texas.
Nice. Nice. And Kirk and your mustache?
Kirk and his mustache are in Brookfield, Wisconsin today.
Nice.
Heading to Tampa tomorrow for
Cool.
Thanksgiving.
Weather.
A little warmer.
Well, our last talk I thought was super interesting. Len, you got a great background, and some of this stuff you're tinkering with is really interesting to us. So I'm very excited to see where we're talking about today. QR codes, right?
That's what I brought to the table for CyberArk this year.
Yeah, what I find fascinating, I was just telling some people on my team, is like the use cases for QR codes is just crazy now. And there was like, I just got targeted by an Instagram ad to put a collar on my dog that had a QR code that basically just went to a website that had like the dog's information on it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, they'll do anything with these QR codes now.
So before we get too deep into this conversation, there is one thing that I do want to specify. When I'm talking about the QR attack vectors, I'm referring to URL redirections. I am not talking about authentication tokens or any type of authentication. You know, for things like that, you would need some type of a companion application or code stack in the back. But when we're talking about QR code usage just in advertising, you know, it's the wild, wild west. You know, we've seen everything from fake parking tickets. I know that in my demonstration, in my talk, I showed some videos on my favorite one that just kind of scares the heck out of everybody is the scan this to get the menu. You know, and I showed how, you know, we can do a man in the middle just off of scanning that QR code. You know, and unfortunately, the truth is there's no security stack or any type of technology out there that's actually going to be able to be implemented by any type of enterprise. You know, it's not like an email per se, but it is. You know, one of the things that I've been saying through this entire campaign is QR codes and advertisement are the same thing as a spam email. They are physical forms of spam email. You didn't ask for it. It's in your face. And if this was actually in your inbox, would you actually click on the link? You know, we've all been through so many phishing and email security campaigns that we know not to actually click on random things. You know, this is, I kind of feel like we're back in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's AOL and everybody's getting email for the first time all over again. You know, and I would like to think that if as this technology continues to evolve, maybe somebody's going to design some type of software stack that will give us some type of threat protection like we do if it's a standard href hyperlink in an email box. You know, we have applications, we have advanced threat detection, we have EDR, we have antivirus, you know, we have analytics, you know, and how many people have gotten an email that, you know, it says, don't click on this, this is bad. And we're like, oh, okay, don't do that. But there's nothing out there. I mean, we've even seen in the wild where bad actors have actually used QR codes and embedded malicious QR codes into the body of a legitimate email, and it gets through all of your protection stack. And when you think about it, when you scan that with your device, it's a manual process. So we need to start getting people to start thinking about these differently and start changing people's mentality and just their thoughts around how to use these and how to do it in a safe and secure manner.
Yep, that is, everybody's trying to come up with a silver bullet for how you do that. I know Microsoft and some of those partners going out the FIDO spec and all that. And I guess how do all these efforts tie together with doing, how do you do that, I guess, in the modern world where people are willing to, menus and everything, they use a scanner all the time?
Well, to be honest, I think a lot of that plays into just what happened during that big gap we were talking about before the podcast started. When the pandemic actually hit, there was a need for social distancing, and the governments, the medical staff, everybody was looking for an answer, and they found QR codes. I mean, the amount of data a single QR code can hold is phenomenal, and they're great tools, but they were never really designed with security in mind. They were just a tracking code used by a Japanese auto manufacturer. And then once people started seeing how they could be used, advertisers picked them up. But I actually have a chart, and you can actually see where, as far as North America, the adoption of QR code usage was pretty flatlined up until the pandemic. And then there was just this massive spike, and we never told any, we told everybody, go ahead, scan it. It's safe. It's better than getting close to that guy that could potentially have some kind of, sickness that could cause you harm. And unfortunately, by, just the media, the mass adoption through COVID tests, COVID vaccines in Europe, everything wound up being tied back to a QR code. And unfortunately, we have this feeling that it's just like making a phone call, or, some mundane task, and it's just safe. But they are the same and have the same capabilities as a hyperlink. So we need to actually educate people, for starters. And the other thing we need to do as the security professionals and as the security, experts in our respective organizations, we need to go to our marketing departments and say, look, let me ask you guys a question. What is the 2 words that is the complete buzzword in the industry right now? Starts with zero.
Zero trust.
Bingo. And what is zero trust when you break it down? What do they say that means? Trust, but verify.
Verify, right.
How am I supposed to verify something when you're just giving me a QR code and I have no idea where it's supposed to send me?
Right. Or how about when I invite you to an event and I send you a URL code also, hyperlink code?
Yeah, but at least with a URL code, I have the ability to go, okay, it says it's taking me to Centercom.com. Okay, well, when I go to scan that code and what pops up, pretty much every device out there that's been designed or released within the last 5 years doesn't really just automatically take you to somewhere.
Right.
It gives you an option. It says, do you want to copy this address? Do you want to open this in a browser?
Right.
I scan something and I think I'm going to Centercom.com and it comes up with, I don't know, just a set of IP addresses.
Right.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, our security, especially on our personal devices, it ends with us.
Correct.
So at a minimum, it gives me something that I can then go, all right, this says Centercom, this says Centercom. I'm at a Centercom event. I think that this is an acceptable risk for me as an individual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's talk about the Super Bowl commercial for Coinbase. A QR code that just bounced around a screen for just over 60 seconds.
Right.
That QR code was scanned over 20 million times in 1 minute, and nobody knew where it was going. A month or so ago, over in China, there was a drone swarm that actually created a giant QR code in the air. We don't know how many people scanned it, but at the same time, I guarantee you people did. So we're back again. Just because it's there doesn't mean you should scan it. And if you wouldn't click on something with the amount of information that was provided in the advertisement, why would you scan it? Especially when we see the fact that, you know, mobile devices, BYOD, loosely connected devices are now probably one of the highest targets, because they make the easiest ability to lateral from outside of an environment into a corporate environment through the applications and the services on that mobile device. So in a lot of ways, I think that mobile is becoming more important than ever. And it's our job, I feel, as the ones that deal in security, to bring this information to people. Because, you know, if you recall, you know, last year when we were talking about the biohacking stuff, the claim I made last year was, how do you stop an attack if you don't know it exists? Again, you know, we've seen Trojans, we've seen phishing campaigns, we've seen everything you can imagine in terms of, if it could be done in an email style phishing campaign, it can be done utilizing a QR. Everything up to the point of code execution. But if I can redirect you to a website that's got JavaScript in the background that'll execute in any cross-platform browser, I still got you.
Right. So I know there's a category on some of the controls, identity, threat detection and response. What kind of things are those looking for, and how will they help your organization protect yourself from it?
They won't. And that's that's the problem. Unfortunately, based on what the final attack vector is, it may not be something that would trigger any of your enterprise stack. I mean, especially, let's go with phishing.
Right.
You know, I'm not dropping any code, it's not executing anything. And if you freely give me your information and hit the button that says submit, there's not a single technology stack out there, unless you're going through some type of heavy proxy that is looking specifically for, you know, social security numbers or you know, some type of, you know, advanced content filtering. You can't stop it because you're manually performing the action. And that's the big difference between emails and the way that the QR codes interface with the mobile devices. When you pull an email into your email client, even if it's an HTML, you know, the code does not automatically execute. There are protections in place within the application. So typically that doesn't happen unless you've gone ahead and done some really crazy things with your own configuration. I mean, you don't hear about Microsoft Outlook, you know, automatically running arbitrary code that's sitting in the back of an HTML. It just doesn't happen. You know, we're doing these things as a physical manual process. And in doing so, even if I say, open this link, and it takes me to a website that's got beef running on it, it's not going to know, because I'm manually telling it to open this in the browser. You know, and unfortunately, we just don't have the technology to where we can actually interpret the QR code prior to actually opening, doing some type of forward look vulnerability scan, kind of like we would see around hyperlinks in emails. It just doesn't exist. So that's why getting this message out is so important. You know, people who may not understand, they may not be heavy security people, but if you show somebody that if you scan that menu, somebody could get into your phone, maybe you start thinking about, is this the best idea? You know, one of my running quotes that I love to say is, you know, over my 30 years in IT, I've rarely found anything that would make something quicker or easier that made it more secure.
The old usability thing, that trumping the security. Yeah, that's actually you mentioned something that really needs to get out, because I mean, these things are everywhere. Like Every restaurant you go into.
Yeah, I
That
won't use them.
Stop somebody from just putting when you're talking about the man in the middle, is that someone getting in the middle by just giving you a flawed QR code, or is that actually intercepting the QR code communication?
No, that's actually somebody scanning a fraudulent QR code.
Okay,
You know,
a sticker on top of it, basically.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got a laser printer. I could print out stickers and just stick them over the placards, on the tables. I'm sure that those, and again, if you look at a QR code, we don't have the capabilities to interpret what those dots mean in clear text. So as long as it's a QR code, even a waitress that works in that restaurant, yep, it's a QR code, still a QR code tomorrow. Are they going to notice any major differences? Maybe, but probably not.
Right.
And if we wouldn't accept the email from just anybody giving us a menu, why would we just accept a sticker on a piece of cardboard?
It's a good point. Is there a way to disable the camera and only for
No,
QR codes type of thing?
No, but most modern devices, like I said, it's a manual process. So it may recognize that there's a QR code there, but it's still going to want some type of manual process of a tapping of the screen or something in order to actually interpret the QR code.
Right. Yeah. It gives you the highlighted yellow and you click on it.
Yeah. But if you don't click on it, it's just like, oh, it's there.
Okay.
And that's the difference.
Okay. You're telling it to override it at that point. Click.
Exactly. You have the ability to go, you know what? I'm not doing this.
Right.
So the other thing that I know we've been talking kind of long, but one thing that kind of plays right into this is the idea of short links.
Yep.
That's one of the things that in my research, I found a lot of these menus and restaurants, they're using short links in their QR codes. And once again, if we're looking for a source of truth or some type of validation of where I'm going, using short links is not a good idea to promote transparency and make me as a consumer and a customer feel confident that, you are taking my security into play. So just things to think about, and like I've said it 3 times, I'm going to stand up and I'll scream it from the rooftops. QR codes are not going away. Just like email back in when we first got it with AOL and, and all those little, here, have a disk,
right.
The good old days, we had to learn as a society that, yes, we can use email, but we can use it in a safe manner. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to go through those exact same growing pains around QR codes as the technology continues to advance. And if anybody's listening to this, like I said, I just gave you $1 million idea. All you got to do is just find some way of being able to interpret the QR code and do the same type of processing that you would get out of an antivirus for an email, and you'll be a millionaire.
Yep. Probably more.
Yeah, especially with the way that they're being used and adopted. Anybody, there's so many free QR code generators out there for your phones, for Windows, for Mac, for Linux. It doesn't matter. That's the other part. These are not locked down to where only a certain number of people can make these. And there's no, certificate authority for a QR code that says this one is legit and is signed by RSA. It just doesn't exist.
Right. That is a huge area. It's the kind of the irony of the whole thing is basic security awareness training is the key to the solution here. It's not a technical solution.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody talks about, the other big buzzwords right now is all around identity security. And I can't think of something that is more identity driven than, our own personal devices. It doesn't get much more personal than that. I mean, we've all pretty much put our entire lives into these little devices that we shove in our pockets.
Yep. And they do all kinds of controls around, around the PC, but a lot of those can be bypassed pretty quickly on the mobile phone. And it's amazing.
And nobody wants to deal with an MDM if you're a user.
Right.
Oh, what do you mean? You could actually delete my phone or shut off my access at a whim? Yeah, because at the end of the day, the corporation and the enterprise, is what's important.
Right. Then
You
you
know,
say, well, carry 2 phones, and people don't want to do that. And then,
exactly. So, I mean, if we're not going to be able to, not deal with multiple phones, and end users want to have the ability to play Candy Crush on whatever device they want to, the only option we have left in lack of a technology stack is education.
yep. Yeah, that's an interesting dilemma that we're facing in the market right now. As far as the corporate world, trying to make it easier to authenticate people and getting into the access management world and the privileged account management world, which, well, I remember dealing with CyberArk 15 years ago. I was selling it to companies that had, governmental contracts and things, and I thought, boy, this is just a feature of some kind of a directory or something, and I thought that would be sucked up pretty quick by some enterprise directory company. But here we are 20 years later since the original patent was applied, and CyberArk's strong and running as ever. So where do you kind of see this, putting your crystal ball on, where do you see CyberArk headed, and where do you see the rest of the market and some of its competitors as you converge privileged account with regular account access?
One of the things that is our big slogan right now is identity is security, and I think that sums it up very, very bluntly and quickly. At the end, we can talk about protecting files, we can talk about protecting directories, we can talk about protecting systems, but at the end of the day, it's all about the identities. It's the human identities, it's the machine identities, and it's the privilege of those identities that ultimately winds up being manipulated, attempted to be compromised, and leveraged. So with the mass adoption of SaaS that we see across the industry, I honestly, my fears and where my concerns lie for the future are still nothing new. It's the same discussions we've been having for ever since people started moving into the cloud. I think that there is still a massive disconnect between IAM roles and Windows/Linux-based securities. One of the things that bothers me is we don't see, and for me personally, I kind of take it personally because I feel like my crew is kind of losing a little bit of their skills. You don't really hear about a lot of hacks anymore.
Nope.
You hear about breaches or leaks, and it's not, I remember when, hacking somebody took skills. You needed to know Metasploit, you needed to know Python, you had to know how to code, you had to understand. Now you just got to wait for somebody to misconfigure an IAM role and you can basically get whatever you want.
Well, yeah, there's these people out in the industry called identity brokers. Basically, they'll sell you a valid identity at a company.
Oh yeah, I actually showed some of that during my speech at your show.
Right.
I showed screenshots from the Genesis identity market showing, individual identities ranging from $59 down to $17.
And some of those, they're authenticated, they're validated, and insured to be good. They have tech support that comes with them.
Yeah, exactly. So identity, individual, I think the industry right now, we're playing a lot in semantics, but everybody's actually saying the exact same thing. They're just trying to put their own spin on it. Mm-hmm. Which really, if identity is the true end goal, zero trust, it goes hand in hand.
Right.
Trust but verify.
Right.
But at the same time, we're not doing much to really try and force that validation standpoint. One of the
usability, I guess it comes right down to that.
Absolutely. It's always that age-old battle of production over security. And unfortunately, production will always win because money talks and BS walks. And
so we're kind of, like you were mentioning, though, is identity is really almost impossible now with all the tools and tricks. It's you said it. I don't know how you stated it before, but identity is almost somewhat generic, right?
Well, no, identity will never be generic. We just need to find the new source of truth for individual identities. I know it's another con, but you brought it up, so I'm going to drop it. you know, check out the keynote that I just did. It was for HughesSecCon. The name of the speech was called "Prove You Are You in a Zero Trust World." And
Yep.
basically that whole speech was around the idea, as far as everybody likes to use biometrics as a unique identifier to an individual, it doesn't work anymore. There's not a single biometric authentication protocol that hasn't been compromised, counterfeited, or spoofed. So if that's the case, you know, and we're moving now, we have quantum computing on in the not too distant future, you know, we are seeing new types of encryption coming out. We need to, number one, know that at the end of the day, you are talking to the real Len No, I'm talking to the real you. I mean, we keep running in headlong into technology, you know, devil may care, but the problem is we're leaving so many holes open.
Yep.
You know, just take a look at deep fakes in general.
Yep. Yeah.
You want to talk about bypassing, you know, biometric authentication with visual? I can show liveliness. All I got to do is just get, you know, enough data points for you to be able to make a deep fake of you, and then just sit there and, you know, because that was the first thing they did, is you can't just use a picture. It has to be able to move, and it has to have liveliness.
Right.
So that's not hard with deep fake. Voice tone, voice recognition, speech patterns can all be done through deep fakes. Retinal scans can actually be compromised with an infrared photograph of the eye and a set of contact lenses. Iris scans are even easier. Facial recognition for Apple devices can be bypassed with someone wearing glasses with 2 black dots in the lenses, because it can't see through the corrective lenses to properly scan the retinas or the iris. You know, somebody asked me, you know, what about DNA? DNA is not static. Every time you get a virus, your DNA changes a little bit. You could look for a specific sequence of DNA, but now we have CRISPR technology from a biomed standpoint that I could technically take that sequence of your DNA, inject it into mine, change mine. Would that have negative medical repercussions? Potentially. But at the same time, I could still do it. You know, the whole point of trust but verify is we need to have something we can trust in to begin with. And as we continue down this technology stack, you know, we've got brain computer interfaces where now they're discussing the abilities of potentially somewhere in the future being able to actually download memories. I don't know what I don't know what
world and all that now. How does what you're doing tie into what he's trying to do?
Honestly, the Neuralink is not really the top one. If you're interested in BCIs, it's actually called BlackRock and Neuro are actually the ones that they've been actually in business and putting things in people's heads for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that the idea of some type of an augmented human becoming more common is it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can see it now with smart prosthetics, you know, for amputees, you know, but right now, all of this stuff is currently reactionary. Mm-hmm. You know, it's, oh, I was in a car accident. I now have a mechanical arm that can still function and articulate. Mm-hmm. What happens when you have somebody like me? And I'm like, I want a brain computer interface, not because I need it to work some type of artificial limb, but I want it so that I can actually communicate directly with a technology stack. Mm-hmm. That they don't let you do yet. You know, currently the subdermal implants are about as far as you can go. I have contacted BlackRock Neuroscience and asked them, would they be interested in putting one of these things into me, mm-hmm. and allowing me to be like a non-disabled test subject so that we could do advanced things and see whether or not this could work towards enhancing the human condition for somebody who doesn't need it for a medical issue. Mm-hmm. So still waiting on that one.
So that, if you had to take out your crystal ball, you know, they're talking about someday this will be an antique, or it won't be, you know, be old school carrying this around. How do you think the augmented reality and all that will manifest itself? Is it going to be a set of glasses, contact lenses, something you embed somewhere? How is
I
that
think
world?
ultimately it's going to be an implant. I really do. I
Mhm.
mean, if you look at what they're doing and the fact that, with the brain computer interfaces now, where if you think of, they've got artificial limbs where it's like, if you think in your brain that you're kicking your leg out, the leg will actually move. So
Right.
that means that we can interface at a neuron level. So if I can actually get an implant that could maybe work with the frontal cortex, you could be able to really have VR. I mean, my thing is, if you have the ability to interface directly and unlock the human brain, you could change what's visually coming through your retinas.
Right.
You could put up some type of invisible field, for lack of a better term, where if you get to a point in space, the brain will tell your hands you're coming into contact with something. So you may be actually able to have tactile sensation. The brain controls everything. So if we can unlock that and we can get in there and we can start getting into the pleasure sensors, the fear sensors, I think eventually, I think we'll be able to make a phone call. We're just going to think, call Bob, and you'll have a complete conversation in your head. It would not surprise me at all. If you just look at some of the crazy things that they've actually, this stuff I'm about to tell you, these are real now.
Right.
Are you familiar with the fact that they're using DNA as a storage medium now?
I've seen the concept. Yes. Right. Yes.
1 gram of DNA solution will actually hold over 7 petabytes of data, with a retention period of over 125 years, as long as it's kept in the proper climate. They've actually grown neurons in a petri dish that are now able to actually play the video game Pong. We've got hybrid microprocessors that are part neuron, part silicon. And they're saying that they think these might be, or some type of hybrid may be what it's going to be required to be able to break that qubit limit that we've been hitting in quantum computing, because the neurons will actually work faster. We've grown human flesh over a robotic limb that will bleed if you cut it and heal.
Yep.
All of this stuff, they have now antennas that basically set on the human body and use the entire skin as an antenna. So the idea that, you're going to have grinder shops, for lack of a better term, I think it's going to happen, especially, and funny you bring up the concepts of virtual reality, because I think it's going to honestly be the entertainment sector and the video game sector that are really going to be pushing for a lot of these types of technology. I mean, if you look at the new PlayStations, we're already doing a lot of that stuff with the haptics. You're playing Call of Duty. I'm not a video gamer.
Right.
I was over at a friend's house and he was playing Call of Duty. And when you go to pull the trigger, there's actually resistance and there's a breakaway point. So we're trying to make these imaginary things that we're doing feel more real. But if you can unlock, the director of everything, it could be as real as you want it to be. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's definitely something I think that we're going to see as time goes on.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, and then when you talk about, well, even just, I don't want to get too far off topic, but you talk about, they put it in relative terms, how far we've traveled into space. We've only traveled like 1 second of light years into space. We can see 183 billion years or whatever, but we've only traveled 1 second.
Yep.
It kind of puts in perspective how far, some things we got the illusion we've went a lot farther than we have. And I think, like you mentioned, it's going to go a lot further once that brain opens up. And I can see, oh, here comes Len. It shows me, points out there's Len over there coming to talk to me. Or there's so many practical applications of just make your quality of life better.
Yeah, but
it's scary though too, with privacy.
Anything that is good can be misused. Any tool, no matter what its originally intended purpose was, can always be misused.
Right.
You know, so as long as we're doing things and we're doing them in a safe manner, I love technology. I mean, hell, I've got it stuffed in my body.
Right.
You know, but I'm also smart enough to know that, you know, I need Faraday gloves if I'm going to go to a place like DEF CON. You know, I'm taking my own safety into account as well.
Oh, yes. Could somebody mess with you with
Oh
at DEF CON? They
yeah,
could.
oh, yeah. These ships are wide open.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody with a Proxmark wants to come up and I don't have my Faraday gloves on, you know, they could potentially write something to my chip and then close the chip. So
yeah,
I got to protect myself.
and no one would want to be famous for doing that, would they? No.
And hey, everybody wants to knock the big guy down. And right now I'm one of the world's most well-known biohackers. So yeah, somebody might want to take me out just because I'm taking some of their thunder, or I don't know. I try to get along with everybody, but at the same time, the world is a dangerous place and accidents happen all the time. So we're back to the concept of identity and security and making sure that we are responsible for our own selves.
So it sounds like, coming down to the end of the day here, the biometrics are very difficult, but now you're getting into blockchain and secrets and keyword and crypto keys.
Yep.
And that sounds like the ultimate identity, but then how do you keep those private?
Tokenization of the blockchain.
Okay.
And we start actually looking. Remember when I said that I think a lot of this needs to go back to basics?
Right.
You know, one of the things that I've been preaching about is the fact that multi-factor authentication does not stop at two-factor.
Correct.
You know, I would love to see more, you know, dynamic and adaptive multi-factor in place. You know, if you're going to try, first of all, it's important. Multi-factor, good job. Okay, fingerprint my device. Am I trying to access this outside of my normal working hours? Am I trying to attempt to access this from a different IP? What's my geolocation? You know, we're not doing this, and we need to
build a risk score, basically. I guess how risky is this authentication or access based on normal behavior?
Multi-factor and two-factor should be looked at as a minimum. That's the entry point,
right? But
it shouldn't be the ending point,
right? That's it's been a lot of good information here. I got my head kind of spinning right at the moment. So given where you are today in the why don't you give us a little roadmap? You mentioned your presentation, some of your presentations you're doing. What's the most eye-raising thing you plan on putting in your body in the near term here in the next few years? Do you think that'll be different?
A Raspberry Pi Zero W. I'm still working on the peg leg. I've gone through 3 different power induction coils on it to get it to where it'll work steadily. But I think I've got it down. So I just have to put 4 of these completely loaded perfectly. I send them off to Dangerous Things and Amal Garofstra. You know, quick shout out to Dangerous Things and Amal. He's going to actually bioencapsulate them and test them for me to make sure that when I go to implant them, I'm not going to wind up getting heavy metal poisoning.
Right.
But the Raspberry Pi Zero is the one. I've got a new Vivo key, which is the one that I was showing you guys before we got started. If you've never heard of the Vivo key infrastructure and ecosystem, I would recommend it. Basically, this thing will do OTP, FIDO. Has a Java card applet backend, so it's got an open development environment, but it's used as a digital authenticator and an individual source of truth because it's an implant with a companion app on a phone. So it adds an additional factor to the authentication because it's not like, you know, like an RSA token or something that you could give to somebody else could get lost. It's in my body. So the only way you're getting this is if you're going to have to cut my arm off. I'm putting in an HID 1, 2, and 3 implant so that I can work with the HID protocol for physical access. And I'm working on different options with the existing microchips. I found some projects out on GitHub where they claim that they can actually execute code from an NFC hit. So I'm going to try and see if I can work with this as a way to try and do more advanced attacks with my existing implants.
Okay, quite a roadmap. I look forward to catching up again here at our next year. Hopefully we'll make our IT summit again, and we can just keep building on this series over the years.
Hey, it would be my pleasure. I really enjoyed coming out there. You know, one thing, and I don't know if you'll edit this out or not. I didn't know that if you say, you know, go blue in the middle of your session, the Ohio people will start singing just like the people in Texas.
Yep. You gotta be careful.
Yep. I didn't know that. I had one guy get up and like he was going to walk out, but apparently, even though I may like a different football team, he came back and enjoyed the rest of the talk.
You know, the Ohio State versus Michigan people, they got some big game coming up here in the near.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of the Michigan people.
Okay, good.
But really enjoyed talking to you as always, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, we appreciate it.
Yeah, Len, great talking to you, and definitely looking forward to the next time we get you on IT Trendsetters.
My pleasure.
I gotta go do a little getting my head on spinning here. I got a lot of things spinning around.
Yeah. Now answer me truthfully, guys. Will you ever be able to look at a QR code again the same?
Like you said, that's something that has to be taken. Companies are kind of ignoring that.
Well, you know what's weird is like in the old days, you had to download a QR code reader.
Yep.
Right.
And then out of nowhere,
They integrated
our cameras did it, right?
Yep.
And I remember when like the menus were coming out and people were scanning, I'm like, I asked like the question, what QR code reader are you using? And they said,
Right.
oh, I'm just doing it on my camera. And I'm like, when did that happen? Like, when did that start?
About 4 years ago.
That's crazy. I had no idea.
About 3.5, 4 years ago.
Is that built into the chipset for the smartphones, or how does it recognize that?
It's actually built into the camera applications.
Okay.
So they basically integrated the ability to interpret the QR into the camera.
Wow.
So
Makes you wonder what else is
theoretically,
built into the camera that you're not aware of.
well, like theoretically, Apple or Android could build a URL filtering process on these phones, right?
If they wanted to, but where's the money?
Yeah,
Right.
and then that's not good for them.
And where's the
if we're looking at
usability,
this,
right?
And if we're looking at it from like an approved list or a deny list, how do you do that when anybody and their brother is making new, just running them off on sheets and sticking them places?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like VirusTotal or, McAfee or Sophos where, they have all these signatures in a big DAT file.
Right. And they're so easy to make, like you said. You could.
I guess if you really want to do it, you'd burn all the battery out of the phone just to process
like trying to import, the Ethereum blockchain onto an Android.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recommend it.
Well, just like you mentioned, though, the toughness of trying to get through all this, we just Centercom, we're getting attacks all the time. My company customer names. We had one the other day that they went to our HubSpot account. They created it was one of the big energy companies in the area that we've helped in the past, and they just added corp onto their name, which looked kind of legitimate. And they got an ex-employee that was retired now as the contact.
Nice.
The cell phone.
Oh, they put some work into that.
They did, and they said, "Hey, we're doing an infrastructure refresh. We want to work with you again."
Oh God.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty targeted. I mean, that's
impressive.
It is. And I'm like, and I went right to our purchasing people again and just go, anybody that anytime they change banks, they tell you just work with me. I'm streamlining this or whatever the case may be. We've got to have an out-of-band channel to validate. Nothing related to that email. We've got to contact that company independent.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really the only true way is the independent channel of any of that conversation.
And Darren is exactly the point that I was getting around the QR codes. If you didn't have the ability to go and call them and get your own source of truth, how would you know? So at a
Right,
minimum,
well-
we need to at least know where we're trying to send people. At a
Oh, yeah.
minimum.
Yep, it's pretty scary that they can emulate all these different identity pieces and components. They've done their homework. They went to LinkedIn, they got some guy, a valid user, they got an email system set
Do
up.
you know how many accounts I keep up just to have out there when I need them?
Yep, oh yeah.
I've got about 12 different social media accounts on multiple platforms that I post on stuff on periodically that only gets connected to via Tor from Tor. And their whole purpose is if I ever need an identity to burn. I mean, there are actual sessions out there about creating, you know, zombie accounts. You gotta, not too much access, not too little activity. You gotta make it believable. So yeah, I actually had somebody make a LinkedIn profile, and then the name of the user was HACKERTWOTHIRTEEN. So hacker 213, but I'm like, no, I don't spell it out long for him, dude. I found it. They even stole, you know, my little, my avatar and everything else. And I was like, I put it up as a post on my LinkedIn. I'm like, okay, I feel, first of all, thank you all for thinking that I'm important enough to try and spoof. Now let's go through how we can tell this is fake. 0 friends. 0 connections. Yeah, that ain't right.
Right. So
Yeah.
why don't you give a plug to where people can go to get more information on your biohacking? That's
yeah, for anybody that's interested in the biohacking, for anyone in Europe, the name of the company is called KSEC. For those of us in North America and Canada, your main implant distributor is a company called dangerousthings.com, based out of Seattle, Washington. Tell them that Hacker 213 sent you.
great.
All right, Len, I appreciate it. Kirk, always great to see you. And until next time.
Sounds
All right.
good, gentlemen.
Appreciate it, Len.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully you found it at least interesting.
Yeah,
Very good.
definitely.
Definitely.
Take care, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks.